So let's get going. Living with contradictions. I think we all live with contradictions, and the idea of this talk is just to start a conversation with all of you. We all live with contradictions. Some of them are funny. Some of them turn out to make a lot of sense. Some of them are just stupid, right? So what I mean by contradictions is that, there you go. How it's like this and it works? Cool. So by contradiction is this opposed situations, these inconsistent elements or inconsistent situations that we live by, and sometimes we don't realize of that. Some contradictions for me is this one. I don't know if you are fluent in Spanish, but this is something I found in a train in Madrid, in the Cercanías one, that in English it says, oh, whoop, whoop, whoop. And it's over, thank you. Woo! Yeah. That's working. So this is what it says in Spanish, glass breaking hammer. So you need to break the glass to get the glass breaking hammer. So how it works, right? And we don't know, and people don't even realize of that, but there are many weird things around us that don't make sense, right? So we all have contradictions, and I'm going to share some stories of my personal life and academic and professional life on how contradictions have been part of it. So I have a business background, and I have a design master's in design. So when I was interested in marketing when I was going to university, but I went to the business school who was mostly focused on management consulting and corporate finance, and I wanted marketing. I ended up working in marketing. I worked in marketing for 10 years. And the inconsistent or the contradiction part of working in marketing for me is that I was working in hair care and shampoo products. And this is another contradiction, right? At some point of my life, I was interested in design thinking. I think it was the new thing. I think my ideal friend is not here, but the lunar friends are here. So design thinking, how it is, how it works, and I wanted to know more. And I applied to an MBA in New York just because they had a course called Innovate or Die. And of course, I was not accepted. And yeah, I wanted to do design, and I went to a business school. It doesn't make any sense now. So now I'm in the Explorers Festival, a festival for entrepreneurs, and I'm a corporate guy, so everything is a contradiction for me these days. But the good thing is that I ended up going to design school. And design school for me was learning how to push the button. Whoop, I did that. Whoop. No, I'm finishing. Yeah, that one, yeah. So I ended up going to design school. I went to design school and I learned many things. So yesterday we had the talk about prototyping and how prototyping can really help you think and create things in a faster way. I learned that everything is a prototype, so don't be afraid to fail. I learned that failure is good, so we learn. But I also had to unlearn many things. As a marketer, and you might have seen the next slide. Should I? Or yeah. What I had to unlearn is that I had to learn that users are people and not markets. And this is a big difference. It sounds very obvious and trivial sometimes, but we as company people, as business people, are sometimes too focused on the business part, on how we will make money is fine, but from our company perspective and not the user perspective. And that's what I think is the biggest contradiction we have, the one I'm bringing now. Companies want to innovate, but from their own perspective. They don't want to bring, not that they don't want, but bringing the user perspective makes it harder to work on that. So I will bring two quotes, one from Dev Patnaik from Jam Associates. He says, companies don't lack innovation, companies lack empathy. They don't want to talk, they want to talk to, they don't talk to people. And Patrick Whitney also says that companies want to innovate as long as it doesn't take too much change, which is true too. So if you don't feel that this company mindset is very strong in our minds, I tell you as a marketer, former marketer, I don't know what I am, but the company mindset is very embedded in our heads. And I'm going to share 2 stories on how it was for me. The first one was in India. I was doing user research, working for a company, and trying to redefine living spaces in Mumbai. It was not only a social innovation project, but also a project where we could share some design methodology to a team who was interested in learning them. So it was the very first time they were getting exposed to design and user research tools. So we happened to interview a lady, and she spoke Hindi, and I don't speak Hindi, of course. And one of our teammates, he speaks Hindi, and it was the very first interview he had. So we told him to ask, do you have plans to change your home in the future, and how are they? So this lady started talking for 3 or 5 minutes. You could see her body language. She was so engaged in the question. And after 5 minutes, we saw our friend, and we asked him, so what did she say? And she said yes, but it doesn't work. Like, what? That's the contradiction. That's the company mindset. And we told him, no, it's not about what the company cares about. He said, yeah, but the company cannot make what she's asking for. But we should be looking at stories instead of looking at answers. So most of the times, that's what happens a lot when we go out to do some research, is getting questions. Are you going to buy it? How much would you pay for it? Instead of listening for the story that is behind. And maybe we can find opportunities there. The second story is it's a rewarding one. I took an engineer to do user research. And he's been for over 20 years, I think, working and amazingly, but probably never had this real interaction with users. After 8 interviews we made, he said, you know what's the best about talking to people? He said, what's the best part? Is that you learn things that you never thought about. It's like, precisely, that's the idea of talking to people. And now I said it's a very rewarding story, because we are little by little getting people into talking to people instead of carrying on markets only. So some closing thoughts. You might know this diagram. Oh, whoop. Yeah, one behind. But no, behind. No, that's the end. No. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. You might know this diagram. Technology. I'm not saying that technology is not important. I'm not saying that business is not important. But technology alone is not enough. Business, we are always focused on growing. But what I'm proposing here is that if we take the user's perspective into the whole equation, we can bring really, really good products that really make sense for users and also for companies, of course. Go to the next one. And the next one. Yeah, so the other closing thought for me is that here we are surrounded by entrepreneurs, explorers, also business people, which is amazing, and designers. And what I was bringing here is that as startups, as entrepreneurs, you have an amazing and a big opportunity of really getting close to people and understand what their needs and what their stories are, and maybe bring exactly what they really want in a very profitable way. And lastly, I would say that, as I said, this is a conversation starter. I'm not bringing a tool as part of the toolbox. My question would be, how might you, which is the last one, how might you bring the user to the center of the conversation, which is that will be my question for you guys today. So what will you do today, or starting tomorrow if you want, to bring the user into your conversation? And that's pretty much it. Thank you. We have plenty of time.
Any questions?
No questions. There's one question there. Oof.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a really powerful presentation. My question for you is, what do you think it involves in changing the questions when you look at the user perspective? And I'll just give a tip of what I think. Maybe it has to do with the purpose of the startup. When you change perspective and when you face user, when you think of people instead of markets, that automatically probably twists the purpose. What do you think?
Well, definitely, I think sometimes, not startups, but sometimes many of the innovations are coming from the technology perspective. And then they are looking for, also I have this new solution, but I don't know who will use it and what it works for. And I think that's the main, not even mistake, but the way companies are dealing with innovation. So I agree with you with the fact of changing the purpose. If it's really about helping people, making their life easier, maybe their solutions might change a little bit, or maybe they will adapt the technology into what people really want, right? Again, many of the challenges we have as a team in Telefónica is that we are a tech company, and that all the we need to find needs instead of, so it's more about finding the problem that we could solve with this solution that we already have, and that's a pain, and we need to change it little by little. Yeah, thanks for the tip. It's a good one. It's one.
Hi, my name is Kalin. Thank you very much for the presentation.
No, thank
now,
you.
I want to hear your opinion about this extreme that I'm hearing in the startup world, where people are, well, startuppers are talking to the users before even having the product, before even having the technology. They're talking to the user, and then they don't even know if they can develop it, but they want to know if it's a need there. So what's your opinion on this? Is it a way to go?
I think that's the best way, right? Because we're talking about this customer discovery, right? You're trying to find what really matters to people. I think well, it's the main focus that the lean startup movement is doing, right? Is go get out of the building and talk to people and find what they need, and then bring the technology. And that's the point for me of innovation. Is not that the technology doesn't exist. So the challenge is build the technology to address that need. I think that's the right way, in my humble opinion. Yeah, I guess you're doing that as startups. Yeah. Hi.
Thank you for your presentation. It's very good.
No.
It sounds like you're looking for major challenge, pains that can cover a lot of people, can help a lot of people. Do you think that with today's movement and lean startups and all the rush around MVP, do you think most, if generically speaking, if most current entrepreneurs think too small? Their problems being solving just something very small as compared to what you are describing to us as something more ambitious, more visionary.
Well, I would say that it's a good way to start small, right? I would say that's the right way to start, but you should have a clear vision, as you said at one point, changing the purpose, really helping people, but this is just phase one to help, right? So this is the main idea, but I don't know, maybe Walter, he was making the presentation about the VCs, right, yesterday, and I think, and you need a vision. You need to know what's next, and instead of you were saying it's not about the idea, it's about the business, right? It's about the job, the way we're solving people's life. That the venture capitalists or investors will be part of it. So I think it's the right approach as long as you have a clear vision of where you're going, I would say. I don't know if it answered your question. Yeah?
Hey. Quick question, because of what you're telling him. Isn't it that sometimes the coolest stuff that we get in our hands is stuff we never asked for? I mean, sometimes it's sort of like, what do you need? Tell me one thing that you really need, except for like, I don't know, a small little airplane that fits into, I don't know, living room or something, like crazy stuff. But as soon as you ask people like, hey, what do you really need? It's like, no, I kind of have everything. It's kind of cool. But then you're like, hey, look, this is Twitter. Awesome stuff. And all of a sudden you discover something that you never knew there was a need for it.
Yeah, but I would say, is that, that's very designy for the designer here. Is that the right question? What do you need? Maybe you should start looking at, depending on who are you looking at. I would say we, for innovation, tend to look at extreme users or non-users and understand mostly extreme users on how they use technology. And then we can find some solutions that make sense for normal people like us, right? And yeah, that would be my approach. And then it's not about what they need, but maybe walking with them through their journey and how their day is. You might find some pain points, some difficulties you have, but you don't even, so you have to be a good observer because people don't think they have a problem. And that's when the big things come, right? So I would say the power of user observation and being very, building empathy with them will make a difference. Yeah. You're welcome. Oh, Helen.
Hey, Louis. Yeah, wonderful presentation, and I myself am a design thinking user. But a question for you would be, what project in your eyes do you see that has really, truly put that method or that strategy really well when bringing it out?
Yeah, that's a good question. And some of them I cannot open them, but I would say what I shared during the workshop half an hour ago, one story of one research we were doing with a company who sells potato chips and another company who sells beers in the US. I wouldn't say brands. So the story, yeah, because I cannot. I signed something. And
NDA, it's called an NDA.
yeah. And the story was that we were talking about party planning. And we did some research on party planning and understood what people care about. And we went to parties, of course. That's part of the user research. It was work. And yeah, the interesting thing was that when we were sharing all the results, we asked them, so what do you expect? And they were expecting, okay, I want to know who am I competing with. Is potato chips, is salads, is sausages, or is it beer, is it gin, is it vodka? And the interesting thing that we showed them, and they were a bit shocked, is that people don't care about their products. When they plan a party, they care about leaving the house clean. So the question we made is, what are you doing to help users to keep their house clean? And they said, no, we innovate only in flavors and packaging. So who can you partner with? Is there any other company that could be part of the game and build not only a product but also a big solution that will engage users? So they are still dealing with new packaging in terms of beers that will make it easier to open and to throw away. But the potato chips, I still don't know where they're going. Yeah, they're changing flavors. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any more?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.